Salam, peace be upon you. My name is Mohammed Layiq Sediqi, the father of Holophase. Today we perform a crucial test of the epistemic firewall, the Out-of-Distribution Generalization Test, or OOD test. The core question is simple, and it is one you already understand from daily life. How do we tell a real rule from a rule that only looks real because it was born in one comfortable place? If you have ever followed the perfect recipe, you know this problem. You cook rice at home. 1 cup of rice, 2 cups of water, 10 minutes. You do it 3 times, and it works every time. You start to believe you have discovered a law of rice. Then you travel. Your friend's stove is hotter. The pot is thicker. The rice grain is different. Suddenly your law breaks. What happened? The rice did not betray you. Your rule was a local fit to your home kitchen. The OOD test is the firewall's way of preventing that kind of confusion in science, engineering, and even everyday reasoning. A true law is not defined by how well it fits the data that inspired it. A true law is defined by how well it predicts phi in places it has never seen before, as long as the rule's preconditions are met. That is the cleanest difference between law and fit. So let us build the idea slowly, in audio-friendly steps, and always in the tri-unity, omega, kappa, and nu together. 1. The home regime and the foreign regime. Every rule is born somewhere. It is born inside a home regime, meaning a particular range of time rhythms, spatial structures, and motion couplings. In Holophase language, we describe that birthplace as a tri-unity set. Omega home, the time rhythm you observed, the speed and persistence of change. Kappa home, the spatial structure you sampled, the arrangement and geometry you measured. Nu home, the motion context you lived in, the coupling and propagation conditions. This is just honesty. If you learned a rule about baking bread in a warm kitchen, that rule was born in the warm kitchen regime. If you learned a rule about traffic in a small town, that rule was born in the small town traffic regime. If you learned a rule about friendship inside one family, that rule was born in the family network regime. Now the OOD test asks you to take the same rule into a different place, a foreign regime. In Holophase language, we name it omega test, kappa test, nu test. A true OOD test is not more data. It is a shift in regime. It is like taking the rice recipe from your home stove to a camping stove in the wind, or taking it to a pressure cooker, or taking it to a restaurant kitchen where everything is faster and hotter. You are not collecting more of the same. You are stepping into a new world. 2. Why the OOD test is necessary. Without OOD testing, a community can become dangerously overconfident. A rule can look perfect inside the lab, inside one culture of measurement, inside one instrument design, inside one pipeline. Then the rule is treated as universal. People build machines on it, build policies on it, build whole theories on it. Then the rule meets the real world, which is messier, larger, and more varied. And it fails. That failure is not just academic. It can become an engineering disaster. It can become a medical disaster. It can become a social disaster. The firewall exists to protect civilization from that mistake, confusing a local success with a universal constraint. Think of shoes. In one brand, size 9 fits you perfectly. You conclude, I am size 9. Then you buy size 9 in another brand, and it is too tight. The number was not a law of your foot. It was a local labeling convention. The OOD test is the rule label test for reality. Does your size survive outside the brand, outside the store, outside the home regime? 3. The tri-unity requirement. Omega, kappa, nu must shift together. Here is a subtle trap. People often test a rule in a way that feels new, but is not truly new. They change only omega. They watch the same process for longer. Or they change only kappa. They measure the same thing with a slightly different grid. Or they change only nu. They change one interaction knob while keeping timing and structure fixed. Those tests are useful, but they are not the deepest OOD tests. A truly out-of-distribution test, in the Holophase sense, must change the regime in a way that challenges the coupling of omega, kappa, and nu together. A daily analogy. Imagine you learn to drive on quiet roads in daylight. If you only change the time of day and drive at night on the same quiet roads, you changed omega a bit, but kappa and nu are similar. If you only change the road shape, but still drive slowly and alone, you changed kappa a bit, but omega and nu are similar. A real OOD test is driving at night, in heavy rain, in a crowded city with tight lanes and fast merging. Now omega, timing and reaction rhythm, kappa, road structure, and nu, interaction coupling, all shift together. The firewall demands this kind of honesty, because a rule that survives only one-dimensional changes can still be a local fit. A rule that survives a true triunity regime shift is much closer to being a real constraint on phi. 4. Speaking the holophase symbols simply. Now we anchor the symbols so the audio listener can carry them. We start with phi, the holophase field, the cyclic movement that is the primitive of the ontology. We speak phi of x and t, meaning phi depends on position x and time t. From phi, we read three echoes. Omega equals d phi over dt. Say it slowly. Omega equals d phi over dt. This is the time rhythm, how fast phi changes in time. Kappa equals d phi over dx. Say it slowly. Kappa equals d phi over dx. This is the spatial structure, how phi changes across space. Nu equals omega divided by kappa. Say it slowly. Nu equals omega divided by kappa. This is motion and coupling, how rhythm and structure combine into propagation. The key is that omega, kappa, and nu are not separate stories. They are one story told three ways. That is why any serious generalization test must respect the triunity. 5. Energy as tally, the ledger test. Now we apply the holophase demotion rule. Energy is not a substance. Energy is accounting. Energy is the ledger you can keep when the omega kappa nu relationships are coherent enough to be counted. So the OD test has a ledger version. A rule that is only a fit often keeps the books balanced only in its home regime, because its parameters and assumptions were tailored to that regime's rhythm, structure, and coupling. A daily analogy. You do your household budget with one set of bills, one salary pattern, one rent, one supermarket. The spreadsheet balances. Then you move to a new city. Different rent, different commuting costs, different prices, different pay schedule. If your budgeting rule was actually a deep principle like always spend less than you earn, it still works everywhere. If your budgeting rule was I can always spend this much on food, it breaks immediately. The OD test reveals the difference between a deep constraint and a local convenience. The simplest formal shape of the OD test. We do not need heavy mathematics, but we do need one clean structure. Call your candidate rule G. Say g of x equals y p-e-r-e-d. This means the rule takes some input conditions x and produces a predicted outcome y pred. Often the rule has learned parameters. Call them theta. So we say g of x with theta gives y pred. Now we take the rule to foreign territory. We collect inputs x test, and we observe the true outcomes y true. We measure the mismatch. Call it the OOD error, EOOD. How far the prediction is from reality in the new regime. Now the logic is simple. If G is a true constraint on phi, then EOOD stays small, within uncertainty, even when omega, kappa, and nu shift together. If G is only a fit, then EOOD becomes large and systematic in the new regime. In audio terms, a law travels well. A fit gets homesick and collapses. 7. Daily examples of OOD failure and OOD success. Let us make this unforgettable by using examples you can feel. Example A, the phone battery myth. At home, in mild weather, you notice your phone lasts about 12 hours. You form a rule. My phone lasts 12 hours. Then winter arrives. You step outside in freezing air. The battery drops fast. Or you travel somewhere extremely hot, and the phone overheats and drains. Your rule was a home regime fit. The deeper law involves chemistry, temperature, and load. OOD testing, taking the phone into a new regime, reveals the real scope. Example B, the one-sentence friendship rule. In one small friend group, you learn a rule. If I say sorry once, everything becomes fine. It works in that group because the coupling is gentle, the network is tight, and memory is forgiving. That is a particular nu and kappa regime. Then you try the same rule in a workplace conflict or in a family dispute with long history. The coupling is stronger, the structure is different, and the time rhythm of trust repair is slower. Your one-sentence rule fails. The OOD shift exposed the hidden conditions of the rule. Example C, the shopping shortcut. In one supermarket, you learn the cheapest brand is always on the bottom shelf. It works. You feel clever. Then you go to another supermarket. The layout strategy is different. The rule fails. Again, local fit, not universal law. Example D, cooking again, but deeper. You learn to boil eggs at sea level. 8 minutes gives you a perfect egg. You declare a law. 8 minutes equals perfect. Then you travel to a high mountain. Water boils at a lower temperature. Your 8 minutes is now wrong. The rule was born in omega home and kata home conditions that included atmospheric pressure and heat transfer context. The OOD test, altitude, revealed the true dependence. Now notice something. In each example, the deeper, more law-like constraint is not 8 minutes or 12 hours. The deeper constraint is the relationship that survives translation: heat transfer, chemistry, coupling, structure. That is exactly what the firewall seeks in science: invariants that survive regime change. A classic high-stakes example: medicine. A drug works beautifully in a controlled lab dish. That is a home regime. Simple environment, limited interactions, controlled timing, controlled structure. Then you give it to real humans. People differ in age, diet, genetics, sleep, stress, other medicines. The omega rhythms of metabolism differ. The kappa structure of the body differs. The nu coupling of immune response differs. This is a massive OOD shift. That is why we test, slowly, in stages. OOD testing is not bureaucracy. It is survival. It is the firewall protecting life. 9. Another high-stakes example, machines. A car performs perfectly on a test track. Smooth road, predictable turns, controlled speed. Home regime. Then it drives on icy roads, in potholes, in traffic, in rain, with heavy load. Foreign regime. A model that only fits the test track is not enough. A law-like model predicts with known uncertainty under the new omega kappa nu regime. This is why engineers do stress testing. It is OOD testing with metal and asphalt. 10. The regime cartographer skill. Now we give you the skill in the simplest usable form. You become a regime cartographer, a person who maps where a rule lives. Whenever you hear a big claim, ask 3 questions. First, where was this rule born? What was its omega home rhythm, kappa home structure, and new home coupling? Second, what would count as a real OOD test? What foreign regime would challenge omega, kappa, and nu together, not just one at a time? Third, what happened there? Did the rule predict within uncertainty, or did it fail systematically? If it failed, how do we change the license? If it failed, the response is not anger. The response is license correction. 11. What the firewall allows and forbids. Allowed. You are allowed to discover a rule in one regime and use it there. You are allowed to hope it generalizes. You are allowed to propose broader scope. But you must test that broader scope using OOD trials. Forbidden. You may not claim a rule is universal because it fits beautifully at home. You may not use a rule for high-stakes decisions in a new regime without validating it there. You may not excuse OOD failure while keeping the same broad license. And when the check fails, the firewall acts. Narrow the scope, update the stability radius in omega kappa nu space, downgrade if needed, and archive the result so future researchers do not repeat the same mistake. 12. The explicit prediction and the explicit falsifier. Prediction. If a rule is a true constraint on phi, then when you move it into a genuinely different omega kappa nu regime, the rule will still predict correctly within uncertainty. It may degrade gracefully, but it does not collapse. Falsification. If the rule fails systematically in the foreign regime with errors beyond uncertainty, then the broad scope claim is false. The rule is a local fit, and its license must shrink. And now we repeat the axiom of episode 11, because this is the soul of the firewall. Rules do not become real by elegance, consensus, or tradition. They earn a license only by surviving falsification, variation, independence, and scope discipline. When a rule fails, we do not believe harder. We tighten, downgrade, or retire its license. 13. One last analogy to seal it, the flashlight test. Imagine you buy a flashlight. In your bedroom, it seems powerful. You say, this flashlight can light anything. Then you go outside into thick fog, or into a smoky kitchen, or into a huge open field. Now the same flashlight is not enough. The flashlight did not change. The regime changed. OOD testing is taking your light, your rule, into a new environment and seeing what still holds. A law is a flashlight whose limits are known and whose performance is stable across many environments. A fit is a flashlight that looked strong only because the room was small and reflective. This is why OOD testing is a gift to civilization. It makes us humble, because it forces us to admit scope. And it makes us powerful, because it pushes us to discover deeper constraints that survive translation across regimes. If you want to see the full mathematical derivations and exact equations behind this idea, you can search for Holophase on Zenodo. There you will find the scientific papers that this audio journey is built on. We have now clearly defined the out-of-distribution generalization test, the firewall mechanism that separates true law from local fit by demanding prediction in foreign omega kappa nu regimes. In the next step of the journey, we must confront a different danger, a statement that cannot fail because it is true by definition, a tautology disguised as a rule. A longer, listener-friendly story, the map, the bridge, and the storm. Let me tell you a simple story that captures the entire logic without losing rigor. Imagine a young engineer is asked to draw a map of a river. She stands on one bank and watches the water for 1 hour. She notices that most of the time the river looks calm and smooth. She draws a clean map and writes a rule on the top. This river is safe to cross anywhere. For a week, nothing challenges her. People cross and they are fine. The rule gains confidence, not because it has been tested, but because the home regime stayed gentle. Omega was slow, kappa structure was stable, new motion was mild. Then one night, a storm arrives upstream. Suddenly, omega changes. The timing becomes fast, the rhythm becomes violent. Kappa changes. The river surface becomes structured with waves, debris, and swirling patterns. New changes. The coupling between water and objects becomes strong, and the flow carries things with force. This is a true OOD regime shift. Now, the engineer's map is still a map, but her claim of universal safety fails. Not because she was stupid, but because she never tested the storm. The right scientific response is not to burn the map. The right response is to update the license. Safe to cross only under these calm conditions, and then to build a new rule for storm conditions, if possible. This is the firewall. It forces us to treat our knowledge as licensed, scoped, and stress-tested, not as sacred. 15. What uncertainty means in the simplest language. Many listeners hear uncertainty and think it means ignorance. In the firewall, uncertainty is honesty. It is the size of the box we admit around our prediction. If I say, the bus will arrive at 9, that is a sharp claim. If the bus arrives at 9:20, my claim fails. If I say, the bus will arrive between 8:55 and 9:10, that is a licensed claim with an uncertainty window. If the bus arrives at 9:02, the claim survives. If it arrives at 9:20, it fails. In the OOD test, we compare error to uncertainty. We do not demand perfection. We demand truth inside declared limits. So when we said EOOD stays small, we really meant the mismatch stays inside the promised box. If the rule promised a small box and reality lands far outside, the rule is overconfident and must be downgraded. 16. A spoken equation for the energy ledger and why it matters. Earlier I said energy is tally. Now I will give you one spoken equation you can keep. We say E total equals E1 plus E2 plus ... plus En plus R. E total is the total tally of activity under your licensed window. E1, E2, up to En are the parts your rule claims to account for. R is the residual, the leftover. Now we add the firewall condition. The absolute value of R must be less than epsilon. Epsilon is your uncertainty bound. In everyday terms, R is the missing money in your shop register. Epsilon is the maximum counting error you are willing to accept. If the missing money is larger than your accepted counting error, your accounting story is not valid in that regime. Either you made a mistake or your accounting categories do not apply there. OOD testing asks, when you move to a foreign regime, does your ledger still balance within epsilon? If not, your rule may still be useful at home, but it is not licensed as a broad law. 17. Two more daily life OOD examples with triunity highlighted. Example E, the one charger assumption. At home, you plug your charger into your wall socket, and it always works. You form a rule. This charger works anywhere. Then you travel abroad. Different voltage, different outlet shape, different grid stability. Now omega changes. The time rhythm of the electrical grid can differ. Kappa changes. The physical structure of the outlet and wiring. And nu changes. How power couples into your device. The charger fails without an adapter or converter. Your rule was home regime only. The deeper law is, devices require compatible coupling conditions. Example F. The same workout assumption. You do a workout routine when you are young and well rested. It works perfectly. You form a rule. This routine always works for me. Then your life changes. You sleep less. You eat differently. You age. You get an injury. Now omega changes, recovery rhythm. Kappa changes, body structure and tissue condition, and nu changes, how muscles couple and how forces propagate through joints. The same routine can harm you. OOD testing in fitness means you must test routines under different body regimes and adjust the license of your training rules. 18. How to design an OOD test in practice. A simple protocol. Now I give you a step-by-step protocol you can reuse. Step 1. Write the rule in plain language and in symbols, if symbols exist. State the claim. Step 2. State the home regime clearly. What omega home, kappa home, nu home conditions were present when you learned it. Step 3. State the promised uncertainty. What error level is acceptable? Step 4. Design a foreign regime that changes omega, kappa, and nu together, but still respects the rule's stated preconditions. This is important. We do not cheat by testing outside declared preconditions. We test outside the home distribution, but inside the claim scope. Step 5. Collect new fee sentences in that foreign regime. In everyday words, collect real observations there. Step 6. Predict with the rule before looking at the answers. Then compare. Do not adjust after seeing. Step 7. If it survives, you may widen the license slightly. If it fails, you must shrink the license and you should record the failure so the next person does not repeat it. This is the firewall spirit. Disciplined travel. 19. The emotional value of the OOD test. Humility without paralysis. There is a human fear here. People fear that if we admit scope, nothing is certain and everything collapses. The firewall says the opposite. Admitting scope is what prevents collapse. When you say, this rule works in this range, you can build safely inside that range. When you pretend this rule works everywhere, you build on sand. OOD testing is how we expand knowledge responsibly. We do not expand by belief, we expand by survival under travel. 20. The final reminder. So remember the simple sentence. A law must travel. A fit stays at home. A law survives foreign omega kappa na regimes within declared uncertainty. A fit breaks when the kitchen changes, when the weather changes, when the network changes. And whenever the rule breaks, the firewall does not panic. It updates the license.